We're going to a slight change to the program, so if you're taking notes, you can write this down. Following the national anthem from Denise Phillips, we're actually going to have a Pledge of Allegiance from Master Sergeant retired James Manning is going to lead us in that. Then we're going to have Senator Boquist's better half, Peggy Boquist, speak for the senator. Then we will have former representative and perhaps representative-to-be Jim Thompson speak. Then we will have President Wayne Henry of United Veteran Groups of Oregon speak. So that's going to be a little bit of a change today. Thank you all for coming, and here we go with the national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Thank you again. Denise Phillips took time off work to be a part of the ceremony today. Just thank you very much. Master Sergeant retired James Manning will now lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you again for gathering today. It is a beautiful, one of the last, I assume, beautiful days before the rains come. My next speaker, the next speaker to come up is the wife of Senator Boquist, who was a major influence on getting what was then House Joint Resolution 202 through the legislature and onto the ballot. As you all know, Senator Boquist is a retired Army, Reserve Army Lieutenant Colonel, and as everybody knows, no military member really serves unless their spouse is with them through that whole process. In this particular case, Mrs. Boquist is also had been a serving officer herself in the United States Army and the Oregon Air National Guard. So please join a warm welcome for Mrs. Peggy Boquist.
Is this the one that works? Can you hear me? I'm not very tall. Yeah, I'm Peggy Boquist, and I'm a veteran. I served 24 years in the United States Army. I met my husband in ROTC. I was actually his commander of cadets at Oregon State. And he became my first sergeant, and, well, we fell in love, and that's a whole nother story. But my husband, along with Representative Lively, have worked tirelessly on this measure. And many times we want to thank our vets for their service. And you hear that. Thank you for your service. Well, to me, voting yes on this proposition is thanking them for their service. And we need to do as much as we can for our veterans, especially now, since we're in this endless war, and we have so many young people that are lost and confused and need that helping hand that we can give them. And this Major 96 can maybe do that for them in many different ways. So I urge you to get out there and talk to people about it, and not just veterans, although veterans should know, but to all of our citizens out there about how much this will help our people. Thank you.
During the legislative process, as all of you know, sometimes folks that are outside the building can play a major role. The next two speakers did that. In fact, the next speaker was inside the building for 3 to 4 sessions, serving the citizens of House District 23. But it was actually as a citizen, not as a member, that he played the biggest role in helping to get House Joint Resolution 202 unwedged during a very critical point in the short session. It is with humility that I ask Representative Jim Thompson to join and share a few words.
First of all, thank you all for coming today. Paul's taller than I am. I really appreciate seeing the turnout. Yes, I do have a dog in this fight. My father was a totally disabled World War II veteran. I grew up helping him, working with him, digging his way back from those injuries for all of his life. He was the greatest father I could ever hope to have, and I have absolutely no regrets about the life I led because of the enrichment he brought to it. But we're in a different time now. We have a better understanding of what it means for taking care of the handicapped that have come back from the war, the injured that are injured because of defending us. I remember times we didn't have handicap parking at that time. I remember going in high school, going to American Legion meetings with my father, and there was always a cardboard box sitting in a parking space in front of the hall. It was an unwritten message, and he used to be very embarrassed about it, but that was the parking place that was provided for him, and there was no handicap on it. Nobody ever thought of him as being handicapped because he could do all kinds of things, because he taught himself to do things differently. He was a survivor of a horrific bomber crash. I guess all bomber crashes are horrific, but this particular one was a fully loaded with fuel and extra fuel tanks for a transatlantic flight. And in the age of another kind of terrorism, it was the fuel was altered with sugar by Nazi sympathizers who were working in this country at that time. So again, this has always been with us. It's a different form today. This particular bill is so important because it adds another avenue of funding for our veterans that need the help. I think most of you, as I know quite a few of you, understand that homelessness, mental health problems, and substance abuse are interconnected, and it's swept up many of our veterans, and we need to provide them with the services to help them get out of that and get back to a normal life. I have a nephew who spent 4 tours in the Middle East and has PTSD. He's doing very well. But it was very scary for a while, and I thought he was going to be one of the casualties after coming home. But I don't think that will happen now. But you all know what the suicide rate is among returning veterans, and that's another thing we need to address. We do not have the resources to do for these people what we have a responsibility to do. We have to build the resources, and this is the measure that will start chipping away at that. It's not enough. I wish it was a lot more money. I wish there were a lot more things we could do at the community level, but it's a start. Again, I want to thank you for being here today and ask you to continue doing what you're doing. I know so many of you, I know you support veterans, so I don't have to do that drill, but it's wonderful to know their support. Thank you very much.
One of the most effective advocates inside the building for veterans these days is Wayne Harvey, who will be coming up next to talk about the measure and what it means to the United Veteran Groups of Oregon. Wayne, please join us.
Thank you, Representative Evans. Again, my name is Wayne Harvey, and I'm the current chairman of the United Veterans Groups of Oregon, which is commonly referred to as the UVGO. We are an umbrella organization that represents 11 congressionally chartered veterans organizations here in Oregon. The organizations we represent consist of the Air Force Association, the American Legion, the American Veterans, the Disabled American Veterans, the DAV, the Korean War Veterans Association, the Military Officers Association of America, the Military Order of the Purple Heart, the Paralyzed Veterans of America, the Retired Enlisted Association, the Veterans of Foreign Wars, and the Vietnam Veterans of America. And as a spokesperson for these organizations, we wholeheartedly want to recommend everyone vote in support of Measure 96. I'm going to take a moment to read the argument in favor of Measure 96 that we put into the voters' ballot and so forth. The United Veterans Groups of Oregon, UVGO, recommends a yes vote on ballot Measure 96. This amendment will provide 1.5% of currently unallocated lottery dollars to support Oregon veterans. There are approximately 331,632 veterans in Oregon, but less than 100,000 of those veterans are currently receiving support from the federal government. While Oregon struggles to provide the necessary services for all veterans living in Oregon, we now have the means to provide better funding to serve our veterans. It is a means of closing the gap to assist the veterans who are not receiving services. The current needs of the state veterans community exceed the state's budgetary funds to the Department of Veterans Affairs. Ballot Measure 96 will help provide the needed assistance to the veterans and their families by closing the state and federal assistance gaps, giving the veterans the services they need. Given today's challenging fiscal environments, allocating 1.5% of the state lottery towards veterans' needs can and will improve their lives dramatically. These funds can go a long way to help with veterans' suicide prevention, veterans' homelessness, veterans' unemployment, veterans' disability services, veterans' education and reintegration efforts, as well as many other needs within the veterans community. The ballot measure is a simple and cost-effective way of providing needed funding without raising taxes. Help us show our deepest appreciation to the men and women who have served in our military by voting yes on Measure 96 in November, and please encourage your friends to do so. And again, I want to thank Representative Evans, Representative Julie Parrish, and all those that have worked in the Capitol for the last few years tirelessly to get this on the ballot measures to the voters to take care of the veterans. Thank you very much.
All right. In just a few minutes, we're going to conclude the ceremony, but before we do, I want to emphasize a couple of things. The first is we chose this spot for a reason, and I want to welcome you to the World War II Memorial if you haven't been here before. Even if you have, I want you to just pause for a moment and look around and look at the names on the wall, look at the obelisk, look at the globe that's on the marble below. We chose this spot because the World War II era veterans are still teaching us today. They served, they built the greatest economy in the world, they continue to serve, and they are, in fact, an example for us to follow. We are currently engaged in wars across the globe. No one can tell me how many countries we're actually in, and even if they did, I'm not sure I'd believe them because it changes. What we do know is the impact of war has not changed a whole lot. It still falls upon the folks that serve, their families, their communities, the folks that love them. Ballot Measure 96 is an unusual measure. It does not seek to do everything that the federal government should be doing. It does not provide free money to do anything that we wish to help veterans, but rather it provides a targeted investment of dollars to help with veterans outreach and veteran services, to help make sure and connect the dots, to bridge the gaps, so that service members who have earned benefits through the federal system get the assistance they need to go back into life and continue serving in their neighborhoods as civilians. This is the most consequential investment in veteran services in Oregon history, period, if it passes. 1.5% of the lottery. It is not only the right thing to do for our veterans, but for those that get out the pencil and the green-eyed shades, it is in fact a $1 in and $257 back return on investment that we've been able to demonstrate over the last 3 years. I see Director Willis here, who knows this story better than most. The Oregon Department of Veterans Affairs, as a partner with the USVA, has done a great job with the resources we have. But Oregon does not have an active duty military culture. We have 350,000 veterans, but the federal government only recognizes 100,000 because most veterans don't generally raise their hand and ask for help. Unfortunately, when veterans are not engaged and not enrolled, the folks in Washington that make funding allocations based on formulas, they don't know what they don't know, so they only put X amount of dollars aside for the 100,000 veterans that they know about. This is one of those opportunities where it is a win-win-win. It is an opportunity for Oregon to send a message across the country that this is a responsible way to invest resources. It is the right thing to do in terms of how we manage our money. And more importantly, for the 5 cohorts of veterans that are currently living, it will provide bridge funding for programs we know work, whether it's homelessness, whether it's reintegration, whether it's reemployment, whether it's mental health care. This is an important thing for us to do. And though our numbers in Oregon as veterans have always been small, the task is important. And I suspect when we engage our communities the way we know how, come November, we will have made that greatest investment. I want to thank everybody that made today possible and the hundreds of people who could not make it today but are going to be in their own communities in their own ways making a difference in trying to tell the tale about why this is important. For the folks who've had to live with Julie Parrish and I as we fought this fight for the last 2 years, my eternal grateful thanks. For Senator Boquist and Representative Lively, who could not be here today because he's another thing, I've never seen 2 chair people fight as hard for a bill when so many people wanted to silently make it go away. This is our moment. This is our one shot to be able to find the resources to do what we know can help in a responsible way. So thank you for coming out and sharing this day, and thank you for everybody who participated, took time off work, and made today so special. I also want to thank Rod and Eli for filming. I want to thank the team for getting the flags and the brochures and everything else out. But more importantly, I want to thank the folks that are not here today because they're still serving. Serving so we could actually come on a nice noon day in fall and talk about what we think matters. Sometimes we forget to say thanks to the folks that are still standing a post. And it's our job to stand for them. So thank you.